And we are live.
Hello and welcome to our live session of Health and Wellness with Dr. Praise. So before we start, we are going to be talking about forgiveness. You know, last time we talked about forgiving yourself, and today we'll be talking about forgiving others. So we have a short clip where we're going to just talk about forgiveness, what you can do, steps you can take to forgive others. And then after that, the show is yours. We'll be open. Whatever questions you all have, anybody has, we can discuss. If anybody wants to call in with any questions or wants to type in the chat, whatever questions you have, comments, just go ahead. This is our show. We are here to learn together. Whatever questions you have, I will answer to the very best of my ability. And if you want to send your questions anonymously, you can send them to our WhatsApp number at +1 601 760 2850. +1 601 760 2850. All right, here we go. Welcome to another episode of Health and Wellness with Dr. Praise. Today we're going to be talking about forgiveness, forgiving others. Last time we talked about forgiving yourself. So I'm hoping that after today's session, you will have tools that you need to forgive yourself and tools that you need to forgive others. Sometimes forgiving yourself is more difficult than forgiving others, but at times forgiving others becomes very challenging, especially if that person doesn't come and apologize, or if that person doesn't even see that they did you any wrong. Have you ever been wronged so much that you thought to yourself, or you told a confidant that you will never forgive this person for what they did to you? Or you say, I have completely written them off. They are dead to me. I will never deal with this person again. They have completely wronged me. They have just hurt me to the core. I know I've been there. And it's very difficult to forgive, especially if the other person is justifying their wrongdoing. And so today I want to talk about just forgiveness, plain, simple forgiveness. What can you do to forgive? Whether it's an atrocious act that someone did that's so horrible that even anybody looking at it would say that this is unforgivable, but we know that everything is forgivable, and forgiveness is not for that person, forgiveness is for us.
Yes, so that was the first clip where Dr. Praise is talking about forgiveness. And I just noticed here we have a few comments that came in. There is a comment from Danmo Mugwariri. He said, connected, welcome to today's episode of Health and Wellness with Dr. Praise Danmo. Then there is also a comment from Paula, Michigan, who says, uh, she is posing a question to you, Dr. Praise.
Mm-hmm.
She's saying, how best can I forgive myself for things that I'm aware very well I was wrong? Would you like to address Paula quickly before we move on to the next clip?
Yes. So Paula, the most important thing is the fact that you acknowledge that you were wrong. I think the biggest thing is understanding that nobody's perfect. We all do wrong. We all wrong other people. And I actually think that a lot of times it's even harder to forgive ourselves than it is to forgive others, because sometimes we can see that other people are human when they do something wrong, but for whatever reason, we find it hard to see ourselves as fallible at times. And if you do something that you think is completely, totally wrong to somebody else, to a loved one, and a lot of times there are consequences to it, sometimes not so much, but a lot of times there are consequences to it, and at times you have to deal with those consequences on a daily basis. So for instance, let's say someone made an unwise decision when they were younger, and ended up in a situation where now they see that unwise decision. It could be a health ailment. For me, when I was 18, I got pregnant out of wedlock, and I chose to put my baby. And so it's like for the longest time, I had that daily reminder of you need to fix this situation because I had this human being that I was now responsible for. So the biggest thing is acknowledging that you did something wrong, whether it's something that you did for yourself or something that you did towards somebody else. And the next thing, sorry, I think it's echoing.
Oh, is there an echo? Oh, let me help. Hi.
Hi. I'll have to get my headphones. But the next thing will be that after you go through that, for me, because I believe in God and I trust in God, I always go to God for healing, for help. And it's asking God for forgiveness. If you are in a position where you can ask someone for forgiveness, then I think it's important to go to that person and say, hey, I wronged you. I am sorry. Sometimes, unfortunately, we are in positions where the person may be passed away or whatever the situation might be that we cannot ask for forgiveness. Or it could be that you did something to yourself and then you always are beating yourself up about it all the time. You cannot stop thinking about it. You think about it all the time and you just think you have just made such a mess. And the problem with that is that it keeps eating a little bit at a time at your self-esteem and your self-worth. And so then that leads to anxiety and depression. So it's very important. One, you've already done the most important thing, which is acknowledging that you did something that was not in alignment with your values for yourself. And now you just have to let it go. And if you do believe in God like me, you have to give it to God. Say, God, this is what I did. This is the position that I'm in. You know what the position is, and I am sorry. And with that, you know that God is going to forgive you, and He is going to bury your sins and your whatever it is that you did in the depth of the sea. So if God, who is God, is going to forgive you, why would you keep beating yourself up about it? The devil always wants us to be regretful and to keep beating ourselves up. And it's truly a battlefield of the mind because he truly works in our minds. So, that's one of the biggest things is just letting it go, because like everybody else, we all make mistakes, but we cannot keep being pulled into the past by our mistakes. We have to let go and move forward and not repeat the same mistake. And if you've repeated the same mistake multiple times, then stop it.
All right. All right. Thank you, Dr. Praise. Before we move on, can I just take this time to welcome Leader Melody, who just joined us on the live show. Leader Melody has a few questions that she would like to present to Dr. Praise. So you could help her. Welcome, Leader Melody. Would you like
Thank you.
Welcome.
Oh, she dropped.
She's back.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, Doc. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Something I want to ask is about my health. I've got some health issues. It started about last year. So I've got a pain on my side. At first, in 2016, I had an operation and I had fibroids. So they removed my uterus. So after that, I have this pain on my side, my left side. So it comes now and then, but for the past week, it's too bad now. And also when I go to the bathroom, when I do stool, it's full of blood, like lots of blood. I bleed a lot, but I don't feel any pain. When I'm about to flush, that's when I see there's a lot of blood in the pot. I don't know what is going on.
And you say the pain has been going on since after your operation last year?
I had the operation in 2016. But the pain wasn't there. It started like last year. That's when I started feeling like my side, when I sleep, when I stand for a long time, then this left side, I feel a little bit of pain. But for the past month and this month and for the past week.
So when they did the operation to take out your uterus, did they leave the ovaries in?
No.
They took out the ovaries?
Yes.
Did they tell you anything about you having endometriosis?
Say again?
Did anyone ever say anything about endometriosis?
No. When I had the operation, they said if we open your womb, because the fibroids are in the uterus, so if we see that if we're going to save the uterus, then we will just cut off the fibroids. But if it's bad, then we will take out the whole thing. So after the operation, they said it was bad. The fibroids were bad. They damaged the uterus, so you have to take out the whole thing.
Okay, and they took out the ovaries, you know for sure.
That I don't know.
Okay, so I would talk to your gynecologist and find out if they took out the ovaries.
Okay.
The pain that comes sometimes, it could be from your ovaries if they're still there. Some people who have had endometriosis can still have some pain. And I'm sorry to be asking you on air, but around how old are you? Sorry, I didn't.
38.
38. So you're pretty young. Because if you are having stool, blood in your stool, then that's also something that will need to be investigated. I don't know where you are right now, if it's easy to be referred to a gastroenterologist, because the two people that I think would be very helpful would be a gynecologist and also a gastroenterologist to see, because it could just be, hemorrhoids. It could be something as simple as hemorrhoids that's causing you to have blood in your stool. But if you're having a lot of blood in your stool also, it could be anything. It could be what we call diverticulosis, which is outpouchings in the colon. But, it's like we would want you to get a colonoscopy to take a look at the whole colon if you have not gotten a colonoscopy, to make sure that there's nothing else that could be serious there. But with the pain, it could be, there are several things that you worry about. So whenever you have pain in the abdomen, you look at the structures that are in that area. So on the left side, in the left lower abdomen, you're looking at, if you still have your ovaries, you're looking at the ovaries, as that could be a culprit. You could be having cysts every now and then that are causing pain, but that should not cause you to have to have blood in your stool. And also on the left side, you have your descending colon, which is part of your colon that goes down to your rectum, to your sigmoid colon, and then your rectum. So it could be anything there that could be of a problem, could be, and especially, with our diets nowadays, we are not very good with fiber. So that can be a problem. And if you have problems with like constipation, that can be a problem too. So I'd say that, first step would be to go and see, find out from your gynecologist. You could even call them and get your records to find out if you still have your ovaries in place, because that could be what is causing the pain. And then after that, you should ask to be referred to a gastroenterologist, and they would likely start probably by doing, basic labs to see and make sure that you're not anemic, to make sure that everything is good. And then after that, they'll probably want to do a CAT scan or a colonoscopy, depending on what they have available currently. But the fact that it's coming and going, it's not something that I would be worried that it's in like an acute infection, because an acute infection, usually that's in a short amount of time and you get sicker faster. But yes, that's definitely something that needs to be taken a look at.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Praise.
Yes, ma'am.
You talked about fiber.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any recommendations you could help Melody with, just in case it could be something to do with constipation? Are there any recommendations that what she could do in the meantime while she's waiting for reference to the specialists? to alleviate. Yeah.
Yes. So what does your diet consist of usually? Are you like a sadalava or
No, not these days. Maybe I eat salsa like once a week or
okay?
once in 2 weeks. Yeah.
Okay, so the biggest things with like fruits and veggies are high in fiber, and as
Okay.
much as possible, you want to eat with the with gandaracho, with with the skin of it. So for like cucumbers, I love cucumbers, but unfortunately, I actually peel the cucumbers before I eat them, which is like getting rid of all the fiber. And I know some people who actually just peel cucumbers and use the skin of the cucumbers as their fiber in their salads. So fruits, veggies, whole grains, those are high fiber foods. So stick to that. And I definitely, I'm not a vegan, but I do advocate for as much plant-based diet as possible. And sadden my veggie, that's plant-based.
Dr. Praise, you mentioned full grain. For a long time, I used to hear that term and I didn't understand what do they mean full grain. Does it mean like, sometimes you have broken rice? So I once thought it meant, when it's not broken, that's full grain. So just in case there's someone out there who's like me who thinks full grain means not broken, could you kind of put it out for our listeners?
So when you're looking at all these whole grain things, you're looking at things that are not processed, like the least amount of processing possible. So even when you're shopping for food in the store, if you look at the back of the package or whatever, if there is like a lot of ingredients on there, let it go. That's too processed. You want something that's the least amount of ingredients. So like, let's say you go to your garden and you pick maveg, right? Those maveg, they're not gonna have all these ingredients like oil and saturated fat and all this and all that. It's just rep. So you want to stay as close to the natural state of whatever it is that you're eating. So for instance, oats. So oats, you don't want anything that's refined. So you want just regular still cut oats is the best, but I know that takes a while to cook. And for those who have slow cookers, you can put it in the night before. You can set your alarm. By the time you wake up in the morning, you have perfect oats. Oats is perfect for like breakfast, rather than eating mazai aka fraiwa with bread all the time. I love avocados, but I realize that I overdo with avocados, because when you really look at even just the serving size of an avocado, it's really supposed to be 2 tablespoons. But we end up, I know when I eat avocado toast, I slice the whole avocado and I put one side on one piece and one side on the other piece. That's a lot of fat. Yes, it's healthy fat, but still it's a lot of fat. So when you're looking at food, you want to look at it at its most natural state. So like chimbagechawa nonga in the field, that's better than corn that's refined that you're getting in the store. So when you're looking even at sadza, I'm sorry to say, but where is too white. So it's refined. Whereas you have you have some that are like, that retain their natural elements that are brownish. Yeah, they don't look as nice as ngwere, but they have more nutrition in them. And then you're looking at things like I don't know if we have this in Zimbabwe, if we have quinoa, which is like a grain.
I don't think so.
Yeah, but at least the grains that we have, all those like those are all like whole grains. So those are good. So even just looking at bread, you don't want to go for white bread, or even it's not brown bread, but it kind of looks like the white bread. You want to go for the bread that you can actually see grains in it.
Mhm.
And it will say on it whole grain. Yes, I know it's white bread, but it's good for you. And then for like for me, one of my favorite is actually sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes, very good fiber source. And then like as much as possible, try to stay away from like my cereals. I'll not think in boxes. You want like oats. Oats is fine, like oatmeal, but like regular cereal, like cornflakes and things like that. Yes, I'm guilty because every now and then I like having frosted flakes, but that's just trash for you. But yes, lots of fruits, lots of veggies, and lots of water.
Can you recommend anything for the pain? Any natural way to alleviate the pain while she's waiting for the recommendation?
I wouldn't do too much of anything in terms of pain, and especially with like anti-inflammatory, vana Panadol. You want to limit how much Panadol you're taking. Like Panadol, vana Tylenol, vana acetaminophen. You want to limit how much you're taking because sometimes people end up overdosing on those because they think they're over the counter and they're safe, but they are actually not very safe. So like you can have Tylenol, acetaminophen toxicity, Panadol toxicity, and that really affects your liver. And then like I know Kunoku, we have like ibuprofen, Advil, Motrin. Those can be really damaging to your kidneys because if you're taking a lot of that for the pain, that can be damaging. That's why it needs to be checked out. Before you start medicating yourself at home with ibuprofen and because you're like two at this kukwana, maybe I should take 4 now.
Yes.
But yeah, and just sometimes playing around with your diet and seeing what your diet does, you'll be amazed. You could
Yes.
even just try to go plant-based for a week and see if that helps with your pain. Yeah.
All right. Do you have any other questions for Dr. Praise, Leader Melody?
No, I'm fine. Thank you so much.
All right.
I'm
Thank you
fine.
so much. Thank you so much for coming on the
I'll stay
show.
away from this junk food.
Oh, yes.
Stay away from the junk.
Yeah, I will try.
Your plate should be, you try to fill your plate at least half with just vegetables.
Okay.
Even broccoli, even if you don't like it, just eat it.
A little.
But all the food is processed these days. They don't taste nice. So yeah.
So you want to go, you should be mostly in your fresh produce aisle. Like if I were to come with you to the store, I should not be seeing you inside the store. But I should be seeing you on the outside.
But there's no way where we can grow veggies, kutongoenda kuWalmart nekutongotenga and buy those processed stuff. Maybe like if you find African shops.
Do you have? Yeah, but even Walmart, like my vegetable aisle, those are fine. Vana cabbage, vana rep, vana, all those collard greens, all those vegetables are fine.
Okay.
And even if you have a balcony, you have enough space to have a garden.
Your flowers can be right, maybe.
I will try to do that. I will really try to do that.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much, Leader Melody, for that.
Like I have my hot feet during the night. My feet, they become so hot. And in the morning, they will be painful.
And when did that start? Yeah, just a mystery.
It's been a long time, but when I had my operation, they told me that maybe you experience those things. So that was 2016.
Hot flashes are common, especially if they took out the ovaries.
Mm-hmm.
Young, you go through basically menopause.
For how long?
It depends with everybody, because the problem is that for most people, they go gradually through menopause in their 40s, towards their 50s, and it's like a gradual decline of their hormones. But if it's surgical, they take everything out. It's like boom, so it's like a big shock to your body, and it could take years. I've heard other people saying they went through it for 6-7 years. Yeah.
Really?
And especially if you're not taking estrogen supplement or anything like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Is it okay if I read a few comments before we move on?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Leonora Lovell Brooks wrote great info. So people are benefiting from the show. That's excellent. Raymond Magnono says, Poland, Michigan, you don't forgive yourself. It's God himself who forgives. If you truly admit, as you are saying, then ask him for forgiveness and you will see the results for yourself. Brian James Miller's Vendetta says, bloody stool, it's melena. I don't know, maybe Dr. Praise, you know what that is. MELENA.
Mm-hmm. So there is bloody stool. When it's black, it's melena. And when it's like red, bright red, we call that hematochezia. So it's like, it's just different name for bloody stool. But then, sometimes people have black stool and they're taking iron. So you can't tell, is it bloody stool or is it from iron supplements or from Pepto-Bismol? You know what I mean? So like, that's why we always say if you have black stool, you should be investigated, because it could also dim where it's coming from. It could be maybe you've got an ulcer. But if you're having a lot of bright red blood, then you're thinking maybe hemorrhoids or more bleeding from lower GI.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then there's a very good question from Tirivangani Marumbei. It's to do with forgiveness. Leader Melody, before you came, we were talking about forgiveness. That's the main topic of the show today. And the question goes, so really it's about a relationship with God. It's not like a mental awareness. For some, unforgiveness is a tool like they use to injure others. They think forgiving is a weakness. I think that's a very something important to address, I think.
Yes, and I talk about it in the next clips, because I've realized that somehow there are times when people think that, especially for the people that are close to us who see us, there's something that I hate, which is silent treatment. If there is anything in this world that I cannot stand, is silent treatment.
Cool, right?
That's a form of torture. It's like, if you have somebody, why would you give them silent treatment? I'm like, you give me silent treatment, I'm walking out that door and you'll never see me again. So, but then, we use it all the time as a form of punishment. We think we are punishing the other person. And so sometimes what happens is that by not forgiving, especially not telling somebody I forgive you, especially someone who has come to us for forgiveness, we think to fix someone. One, we think we are punishing them. Two, we think we are teaching them a lesson. Who are we to be teaching somebody else a lesson? That's not our job. And so it's like, for us to be saying Kutijoni, I will not, especially when someone comes to you and says, I am sorry for what I did, it was not right, whatever. And then you say, well, I will not forgive you. It's like, basically we are just trying to make them feel hurt the way that we were hurt. So if you don't acknowledge and deal with it on your own, you will not find it easy to forgive other people. And you have to look at the situation for what it is. And you have to acknowledge, Kuti, yes, you wronged me. That's why open communication is so important. Because sometimes people, but you don't even know what you did wrong, right? But there is no open communication. And then a lot of friendships have disintegrated that way. A lot of relationships have disintegrated that way because people are not communicating, and people are out there to, So it's like, it's very important to deal with things and to have conversations. And of course, there are instances where there is abuse or there is, things that were done that were completely atrocious, where you cannot go and talk to the person. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that by forgiving, you have to go and tell the person, I forgive you. You can forgive and still not tell that person, I forgive you, if you are not in contact with them. And it doesn't mean that by forgiving, you're reconciling, because you can forgive for your own sake and still not reconcile with that person.
Thank you, Dr. Praise. There are two more comments here that I haven't read yet. From Portia Maraungwayera says, good evening to you and welcome to the show, Portia. And Idris Peters says, hi, Idris, welcome to the show. Earlier, Dr. Praise, you were answering a question by Paula Michigan. How best can I forgive myself for things that I'm aware very well I was wrong? And when I was listening to you speak, I kind of remembered how what helps me to forgive myself. And I would like to share if that is okay.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. So it's something that I learned as I went along in life, that all my mistakes are really just pointers to my weaknesses, to what I don't know. That when I make a mistake, it helps me to realize that, oh, I made this mistake because I didn't know that things would go this way. And so I came to sort of look at my mistakes as big red signs showing me what I need to work on, whether it's in my way of handling things or, in life in general. So I stopped looking at my errors and my weaknesses as bad things that I should be ashamed of, or, that people might dislike or hate me for, but just to see them as very useful tools that help me to find out what I need to get more knowledge on, and what I need to work on in my personality and my walk in life.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I found helped me a lot, to just let go and understand that, well, it's, we all make mistakes and they serve their purpose in life. The most important is you learn from the mistakes and then you improve. And I think if you do manage to improve, it makes it easy to let go and not feel so bad about it anymore.
I totally agree. And I think one of the things for me is that I suffered, and to an extent still suffer from perfectionism, the need to be perfect. It's like from when I was a little girl, I would go to school, and when we had to write with pens, oh my gosh, my heart would just drop, because I'm like, if I make a mistake, I have to start over because I needed my my paper to be perfect. But with a pencil, I could go back and I could erase, and then it still looks nice. So even in high school, when we moved to America, in high school, I would still write with pencil, because I was not going to put a cross check mark to say I made a mistake and continue on. And that's a big problem, because it's like in life, you cannot go back and erase and make it still look pretty. You look at your consequences, you deal with your consequences, you look at your mistakes and you deal with it. And it's okay. It's just like if you are running a business, right? And it doesn't go well and you end up bankrupt. Are you going to just give up and be done with it? Most people do give up and be done with it. But I say you get up and you try again. Sometimes it might take you 3, 4, 5 businesses that have failed before you get that one business that's going to succeed, because you kept trying. And now you've learned from your previous mistake, and you already, you've learned. So I don't know if it's cultural that we grow up, especially thinking, Kuti, we have to be perfect and we always have to be good. And I think one of the things I blame our school system in Zimbabwe. Yeah, Kuti, growing up, tai renkwa number 1, number 2 to number 35 or number 40 or whatever.
Okay, it's a 40.
And so it's like, my number 40, I have a number 40 to grade 1 and grade 2 and grade 3. They already think, you know what, I can do better than 40. I'm always going to be no 4. I'm always going to be number 40, It's like you have already kind of ingrained this in the child. And then for those vanogara ma top 10, like munogariswa kama groups, group 1, group 2, group 3. So kana waigara uchigara uri mu group 1, then you always think inini I'm smart, and it's like it carries on in life. You might not even be that smart, but because why every time kuti you're smart, it shows in your life kuti Jonichi, because that's what's ingrained in you. But kana wagara uri mu group 5, which is uri low for all the time. Like thinking kuti that's what it is, and it's all in our thinking kuti tikufunge about ourselves. And so when we make mistakes, we beat ourselves so hard because we are so used to being beaten up for making mistakes.
Yes.
I always tell my kids, I have my daughter is going to be 21 next month, and I have a son who's 18, and my other 3 boys. And it's like I always tell them that go out there, be brave, make a mistake, do something, not like big mistakes like that will get you in trouble with the law or anything like that, but try something new. Like if you like someone, tell them you like them. If they reject you, so what? You don't lose anything from it.
Experience, you gain experience.
Experience teaches you, because wakaona tizoni waka-approach msichana, so wakatizoni, hey, you're cute, ashandi saka you so you're anything out of it. But then it's like somehow we are in this culture where we always feel like we have to be perfect and we cannot make mistakes. And we need to just relearn that it's okay to make mistakes. Mistakes are just stepping stones and learning experiences. And it's just what teach us to do better in whatever it is that we are doing in life. It's just like, in a marriage, there is no marriage that is perfect. You wrong each other all the time, but it's how you deal with those those disagreements, right? And you apologize and you move on. Like for a happy, healthy marriage, there has to be a lot of forgiving.
Yes, true.
Yes, true. And a lot of just moyo mrefu. So it's like if we can do that with our loved ones, why can't we do that with ourselves?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. All right. Little Melody, if you feel like you'd like to jump in, feel free. You can jump in.
Little Melody.
Yes. Oh, sorry. Wait, let me unmute you.
I said I'm fine. I'm listening.
All right. Okay, great.
Yes.
Great. All right. So we had listened to the first clip that Dr. Praise prepared for us, and maybe we can move on to the next one.
Yes.
Let's start by looking at 3 verses in the Bible that talk about forgiveness. As usual, I refer to scripture because that is my foundation. So Matthew 6 verse 14 says, "For if you forgive other people when they sin against you, your heavenly Father will also forgive you." Colossians 3 verse 13 says, "Bear with each other and forgive one another. If any of you has a grievance against someone, forgive as the Lord forgave you." Matthew 18 verse 21 to 22 says, "Then Peter came to Jesus and asked, 'Lord, how many times shall I forgive my brother or sister who sins against me? Up to 7 times?' Jesus answered, 'I tell you, not 7 times, but 77 times.
So,
okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to ask that. Would you like to come in, or shall we move on to the next one?
Let's move on to the next one.
All right.
What does forgiveness mean? Forgiveness is extending mercy to those who have wronged us or those who have harmed us, even if they do not deserve it. It is not about finding excuses for the offending person's behavior or pretending that it didn't happen. Studies have shown that forgiving others produces strong psychological benefits for the one who actually does the forgiving. It has also shown that it decreases depression, anxiety, has effects on our cardiovascular system, our immune system,
better sleep, reduces our anger, reduces symptoms of post traumatic stress disorder, and overall helps us with our health. Scientists have studied what happens in the brain when we think about forgiving and have discovered that when people successfully imagine forgiving somebody else, so hypothetically they have forgiven somebody else, they show increased activity in their neural circuits responsible for empathy. This tells us that empathy is connected to forgiveness and is an important step in the forgiveness process.
And
So, yeah, go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
So I think, a lot of times when when we're talking about forgiving others, we have to look back at us, at ourselves, because each of us have instances where we have blundered, where we have done something wrong, where we have wronged someone else, and we go to them and ask for forgiveness. Sometimes tinonyara kutonokumbira forgiveness, and when you think back to that situation, you think of a situation and you say, Kuti, here I really, really did something that I was not proud of, something that really hurt somebody. So how did you feel? And how did it feel when you were forgiven, if you were forgiven? Or even if you weren't forgiven, how did that feel to you? And I think that helps us to look at the other person and say, okay, this is a human being just like me who makes mistakes. And they deserve forgiveness, even though a lot of times we're like, this person does not deserve to ever be forgiven, but everybody deserves forgiveness.
Thank you. I noticed we got one more comment from Veneka Clara Banga, and she's saying amen, probably commenting on something that was said earlier on. And if it's all right, we can move on to the next clip.
Yes.
All right.
Forgiveness takes time and effort. I don't expect that someone wrongs you and you forgive them right away. It will take time for you to look at the situation, process the situation, look at how it has impacted you, and then find ways to let go of the anger, of the pain, and the need for revenge. So once you're at peace with what happened and once you have processed everything that has happened surrounding the situation, then it makes it more easier to forgive and to let go. Forgiveness, remember, is not about the other person. Forgiveness is for you. And I think that's one of the main points that I keep emphasizing, that forgiveness is not about the other person. It's for your own personal healing. When you forgive, you can begin to heal even from that situation.
All right. Shall we move on to the next one?
Yes.
All right, great.
Forgiveness does not let the wrongdoer off the hook, and it does not give them permission to hurt you. So you can forgive without forgetting. Part of forgiving those who are closest to us, because a lot of times it's the people that are closest to us that hurt us. Part of forgiving those people is creating very strong boundaries. You are creating these boundaries to protect yourself so that you are not hurt by them again. You have to be clear about those boundaries. Say, if this happens again, these are the consequences to it. And you have to be able to stick to what you say is going to happen. Because if we get into that situation where people are constantly hurting us time and time again, because we are not strict with our consequences when we say, if you do this again, this is what is going to happen. It is important to practice compassion and empathy when we are thinking about forgiveness. Nobody is perfect, we know that. But being empathetic gives us that viewpoint where it's very humbling for us when we look at our own situations where we have had to be forgiven. And when you look at it from that viewpoint, then it enables you to look at the other person as a human being rather than a monster. Even though there are times when people are do such horrible things that there's no way looking past how much of a monster they are. But being empathetic and compassionate is very key in us forgiving other people. And I think we had touched on that already about empathy and how much it's important for our forgiveness journey.
Yes.
So forgiveness, like I said before, does not mean that you're releasing the wrongdoer from their obligations that they have to fulfill for what they did. For instance, if it's something that needs to be paid for legally, they have to pay for it legally. It does not mean that you have to reconcile with that person. It doesn't mean that you have to rebuild that relationship with that person unless you want to. And it does not mean that you have to pretend that everything is okay just because you have forgiven. You can still forgive and still keep your distance. For those of you who believe in God like I do, harboring unforgiveness really complicates your relationship and compromises your relationship and your daily walk with God. It is important for us to search deep within ourselves and see if there are any areas of unforgiveness, if there are people that we are holding grudges against, people that we have not forgiven. We need to go back there, look at the situation, look at what happened, acknowledge that we were hurt, and work towards forgiving those people and letting go. Yeah, because you can eat all the plant-based diet you want, but if you're not forgiving and holding on to grudges, it's still going to be eating you little by little. These are things that we don't realize because we don't really see the physical effects of it. But we know that when you're not mentally healthy, it it shows in other areas of your life. And it's the same thing with forgiveness. When you're holding on to a lot of grudges, because it's not going to be just one person who wrongs you. It's going to be multiple people, sometimes even multiple people per day. And if
Yes.
you're holding on to grudges every day, can you imagine just the pile up of it?
Yes. You end up having grudges with everyone you interact with, and then life becomes difficult.
It does. Have you ever met one of those people who is just so unhappy? Like
Yeah.
nothing seems to make them happy. They're so unhappy, and everybody is out to get them, and everybody is, it's like all
Yes.
those things that's coming out in your life, and then they come seeping into your relationships. So
Mhm.
now at home, even you might not be having a grudge against your partner, but then because you have all these grudges, it's coming out in your relationship with your partner, and it just really is not. It ends up being a terrible toxic cycle.
Yes, yes. Even children, you might not be able to relate lovingly to children when you have a lot of emotions that are boiling up inside. You might be impatient with
Yes,
kids, and yeah.
absolutely.
Yes. And there's something you said, Dr. Praise, about um your relationship with God, that not forgiving affects our relationship with God. I remember there's a verse you read earlier on in an earlier clip that said that your Father forgives you as you forgive, meaning that if I can forgive everything that has been done wrong to me, then God also forgives everything that I have done wrong. But
Yes,
if I can't forgive others, then God, it makes it hard for God to to forgive everything that I have done as well. So I am forgiven as much as I am capable of forgiving. So if I don't forgive, it becomes like that block between me and God. And when He speaks to me, I don't hear Him, because
yes,
all I hear are the negative emotions and thoughts that are playing over and over in my head and in my heart. So it's something that I just picked out from what you read earlier. From, was it Matthew chapter
yes.
6 verse
Matthew
14?
6, verse 14. For if you forgive other people when they sin against you,
your Heavenly Father will also forgive you. And I think, for a lot of these issues that we deal with, for all the issues that we deal with, they're in the Bible, because God knew that we'll be suffering and dealing with these issues in our daily lives. And so, and I think that's one of the things where we have, if God can forgive us, who are we to, one, not forgive ourselves or not forgive others?
Yes, yes, exactly. There's a new comment that came in from Langton Nehumba. I think you might want to address this one. It says, if those who wronged me are serving a jail sentence, when I forgive them, do I have to withdraw my case in the courts of law?
No. So forgiveness does not mean that they don't have to serve their sentence. They still have to deal with their consequences. If they have to serve a life sentence for what they did, or if they have to serve 20 years for what they did, they will serve that 20 years. Forgiveness, like I said before, is not for them. Forgiveness is for you, for your own personal healing, so that you can move on with life, so that you can move on with a healthy life. Because by not forgiving, it actually affects our bodies and our health, even though we don't realize it, but in the long term, it affects us. So and forgiving someone doesn't mean that you necessarily have to go to them and tell them, I forgive you. If you can and you want to, that's great. But you don't necessarily have to go and tell them, I forgive you. You can still forgive someone and not have contact with them, especially if someone that is serving a jail sentence for what they did. I mean, you may not want to do that. And there are people who go. I mean, recently when I was preparing for this talk, I read about a young man who I don't remember how old he was, maybe 17, 18, and he ended up in a gang. And with this gang, they went and they killed this young man. This young man. So it was now the father and the sister of this young man that was killed for nothing that forgave this young man. And the father to the son that was killed ended up mentoring this young 17-year-old who's now like in his 40s and is now out of jail. And he works for this man whose son he killed. And he forgave him. He developed a relationship with him in prison. And he, even up to now, they have a relationship. But that's rare. You don't see that all the time, where something that tragic happens and then, people forgive and actually go to the jail and do all these things. So no, you don't necessarily have to. You can if you want to, but you don't have to do that. And it doesn't mean that because you've forgiven them, they have to be off the hook for what they did.
I think Langton Mumba's question demonstrates something that even I'm noticing. It's hard to understand, what does forgiveness mean when it's separate from those other actions like reconciling and then rebuilding a relationship, or then not meting out consequences. I think most people, including myself, we have this notion that when you forgive, it means now, you have mended bridges and you should be able to continue from where you left off. So I'm now finding it a bit hard to really isolate what the forgiveness itself is when it's separate from those other things. Like, what does it mean to say I have forgiven you, but I don't necessarily do those other things that normally we associate with forgiving someone? How do you do it? What is it? Is it a mental state?
Absolutely. And that's the thing, because think of it like, for instance, I'll use my own personal experience. And I'm sure there are women who've been in situations where I've been in where they can relate. So let's say you've been in an abusive relationship, and you were wronged. There is no question about it. You had bruises to show it, physical bruises to show it, because sometimes someone can be mentally or emotionally abused, psychologically abused, but there's no physical signs of it. So somehow we find it hard to believe that they're being abused, right?
Whereas somebody who is physically abused and you see kuti they have a broken arm or they have bruises, you're like, oh, she's being abused. Even though we know kuti zvoni, there is no difference between those abuses. Abuse is abuse. But for somebody, let's say you've gone through mental, emotional, physical abuse in a relationship, and then your husband, you leave, right? Because you have told him, like I said before, create boundaries, strong boundaries that you stick to. So you say, okay, I'm going to give my husband another chance. And you say, if you lay your hands on me again, that is the end of it, you know? And you say, I am packing my bags and I am going kumbakwenu. If you lay your hands on me, that's it. And the next time he lays his hands on you, you pack your bags and you go. Not good. The next time he lays a hand on you, you say, but but you know, he had a rough day at work. Wakumwitra my excuses, manji. And yakumba, now he's feeling bad about what happened. Akuunza tumarozi, akuunza netuhagendazi. But he's so sorry. Ndingabva ndamsiya sure. Ndiana anozombikira, ndiana anozomuwatira hembe. And you're like, and I'm like, iwe, wakandifonera, I will tell you kuti zvoni akadi kufunga izvozvo before akurova. Saka you said kuti zvoni wakandibata futi I'm going back when you need to do that. Right? So you leave and you go. And then you've got two situations. Onzwa babwe mwana, ochidzoka voti zvoni amai mwana. You know what? I'm going to give you time. Wadi kuti udzoke ako kumbani vana. Ogara pamba inindo move out. Ndichaenda ku anger management. Ndichaenda ku counseling. I'm going to win you back. I'm going to prove to you kuti zvoni I am changed for real, for real. And babwe mwana voita all those things. And you see kuti munhu zveshuwa achinja. Yes, you should give him another chance if that is what you want to do. But pasina kana effort yaitwa. Munhu akutotanga kutokushurukudza uri kumba kwamai vako. Kana utauya kuzopa vana achikuudza kuti zvoni kana uchida kuzoona vana vako achiri vapenyu udzoka kumba. No, that's not somebody that you deal with, you know? So it's like there are instances where you have somebody who wrongs you and you choose to reconcile with them because they are proving to you kuti zvoni, yes, they want to change and they are changing and they are trying. And then you have the instance where muna asks kutomboyedza kana. And it's like, there's no point in reconciling. But for your own health, you have to forgive and you have to move on. To the point yekuti, wakamwona pa street apo, hapana chino, you don't feel anything. Unomwona and you can say kuti zvoni, yes, babwe mwana wangu, muri right. Good, okay, bye. Kana wakamwona, you can help without even feeling anything, you know, because I'm over. Exactly. What is when you are dead to me, you know, because wakati you are dead to me, it means that you are still holding on to a grudge. Okay. And you haven't forgiven. So you can forgive and move on for your own sake, for your own life without reconciling the moon. And those we need to realize that those are completely separate. Because you can forgive without reconciliation and it's still forgiveness.
Mm-hmm. Oh, thank you so much. That really clarified that for me. Kuti, when you don't, you know, you have to get to that place where you don't have those feelings, those emotions anymore. Remember,
exactly.
My emotions wotanga kuita well up inside, but anenge angovo munhu wekuti unongomhoreso kuti handisi kudzoka kumba, but we are good. Okay, right. I think Tatane, one more clip to go, the last one. If you don't have anything else to...
Yes.
All right, okay.
So much for being here, listening, and for spending some time with us on Health and Wellness with Dr. Praise. In summary, I want to just highlight on 4 important things about forgiveness. Remember that forgiveness is a choice. We choose to forgive. Letting go of the hurts and the pain and the anger and the need for revenge is good for our health. It's not about the other person. Forgiveness is for us. We're not doing it for the other person. Sometimes people feel like they are punishing the other person by not forgiving them, but what they're doing is actually punishing themselves. So remember, forgiveness is not about them, it's about you. So if you have any topics that you want us to talk about and discuss, please feel free to send them to our WhatsApp number at 601 760 2850. 601 760 2850, and we'll be happy to talk about them. So for now, we are going to have a live session, and I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you call in and we can talk about anything health that you're thinking about that affects you. And next week, we'll be talking about heart disease. Until next time, ciao. That's it.
Yes. Little Melody.
Hi, hello.
Hey, hi. Do you by any chance have some topic that you might like that one day we can discuss with Dr. Praise in the coming episodes?
Yeah, I'll think of something, then I will let you know.
All right, great,
Yes.
great.
Well, thank you, Leader Melody. Now I'm going to be asking that you be on all my live sessions.
Exactly. If you don't mind Little Melody, it would be nice to have you.
Guys. Thank you. Cheers. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Yes, and to our viewers and listeners, thank you for joining us for today's episode of Health and Wellness with Dr. Praise. We hope that you found these discussions beneficial. And if you have any questions on the topic that we discussed today, either topic, the health related, the physical health related one, or the one related with emotional health, the forgiveness topic, feel free to send them to Dr. Praise on the number that she gave earlier. It's on the screen there. And if you happen to have any topics that you might like to suggest for discussion in future episodes, feel free to forward them to the same number as well.
Thank you, everyone. And until next time, have a good week. Or at least now weekend. Have a great weekend.